boat race, Grand National, World Snooker Final and the London Marathon. Every year for the past 40 or so, you've known it's the end of winter, spring has sprung and summer is on its way. The marathon is a sporting spectacular, part of British society and more importantly part of all of our lives. It's also the biggest one-day fundraising event in the world, raising more than £66 million for charity last year alone. So how strange, in this, the strangest of times, that it won't be happening in April. It'll be in October instead, when hopefully everything we're currently going through will be a dim and distant memory. I'm John.
And I'm Michael, and this is Anything But Footy's Great British Bosses, the podcast where we focus on the key people behind the scenes who make the British sporting world tick. 2020 was supposed to be a big birthday celebration. The London Marathon is 40 this year. But on the 13th of March, organisers had to reveal the race was off. Fortunately, it's been moved to the 4th of October instead.
I'm Hugh Brasher and I am the event director of London Marathon Events.
Hugh, firstly, a year of celebration was planned, as we mentioned. How difficult has all this been, the ongoing impact of coronavirus?
I think that it's been difficult for everybody just to try and adjust what is going on in the world. And if you think that on the 31st of December, so that is less than 3 months ago, I think the first case in Wuhan was found. And where we are today is the world is being affected. The speed of change is unheralded, and we are in the UK now being asked to stay in our houses, to exercise once a day only, and only go to work if the work we do is essential. So I think we're just in such uncharted waters, and it's incredibly difficult for everyone, just everyday life and trying to adjust to it.
But you were pretty quick in some ways of recognising this and realising that the London Marathon couldn't go ahead in April.
Yeah, I think that I think really the penny started to drop for us very seriously the night before the big half. And the big half is the Vitality Big Half. It's a relatively new event that we organise that is trying to be uniquely local but truly global. And it's trying to really encourage London's communities to get behind an event and to open it up to all areas of society. And that event was on the 1st of March, and I was sitting in the race hotel, and I got information that the Paris half marathon had been called off at 12 hours notice. And we had been looking at the situation before then, but all of a sudden our realisation of what was happening in the world and how quickly things were changing just skyrocketed.
And then how easy was it to make the decision to call it off? It sounds like it was the right thing, and obviously it was, but you then had to be able to then find another date for it. And I can imagine in a city like London, you can't just suddenly go, right, we need the whole of central London closed on a Sunday in October. How did that come about? How tough a challenge was that?
Well, I think it came from, first of all, the realisation that, as you said, the London Marathon raises £66.4 million for charity last year. It has become, part of the heritage, really, now of Britain. And to have done that, this was going to be our 40th race, and to have achieved that in the timescale we have, when you have other events such as the Grand National, the boat race, the FA Cup, they're all over 100 years old, and yet the marathon, this was our 40th race. But it really has progressed from 1981, where it was predominantly men taking part and they were all runners, to a sea of humanity coming together. And something that is so important, it is showing that mankind can work together. The community of mankind can come together and celebrate together. And that was one of my father and John Disley's founding pillars of the event from when they went to New York in 1979. And I think with that realization, we understood that we had to try and find another date. And we spoke immediately to the Mayor's office, to TfL, to the Royal Parks, and everybody was incredibly supportive because I believe they understand what the marathon means to London, what it means to Britain, what it means to charities, what it does in inspiring people to take up activity, and something that's been seen to be so good for your physical and mental health. And at the moment, with what's going on in the world, people's mental health and trying to get some exercise is so important. So our stakeholders were just so helpful, and we did some work on sort of daylight hours. We did it on temperatures. We looked at other major things going on in London, and pretty well there were 2 dates, and that 2 dates came down to one, which was the 4th of October, and we were able to announce that when we made the decision, It is something we hope that we in the world can look forward to, as you say, as a light at the end of the tunnel when we're coming out of what the world is dealing with at the moment.
Yeah, you mentioned your dad, Chris, and also John Disley, and I'll come back to them in a moment. Just one more question on the whole coronavirus before we move on. I remember the Boston bombing just weeks before the London Marathon a few years ago, and the implications it had on London then. But coronavirus, this must have been yours and the marathon's biggest challenge to date.
Yeah, I think it's in my lifetime, it's the world's biggest challenge, I think. Yeah. The atrocity of Boston, as you said, and how London taking place 6 days later, again, it showed our ties with America at that stage, and the London Marathon is part of the 6 major marathons in the world, the Abbott World Marathon Majors, and there was so much support going on amongst each of the race directors in the conversations we were having about our own events. Tom Grilk, who is my sort of equivalent at the Boston Athletic Association, that's probably doing me upping my importance over Tom, but he and I were speaking daily at all times of the night, really day and night, just coordinating, trying to understand what each of us were going through, what the cities were going through, what the mayors were going through. So that support was really helpful at the time. And as you say, it was a huge challenge. It is a huge challenge dealing now with all our staff working remotely, communicating in new ways that actually could in the long term be really beneficial. But at the moment, it is a time of reflection and a time of just trying to make sure we communicate with each other and support each other through what is going on in the world.
You mentioned there your staff. The London Marathon is so much more than just the race in April, as you've mentioned, and so much more than your dad, Chris, and John Disley would have imagined in 1981. How many staff do you have, Hugh, and how tough has it been to get them all working remotely?
So we have a team of about 75 staff at the moment, and they are incredibly committed to inspiring activity. That is the vision of London Marathon events, inspiring activity, and all our profit goes to the London Marathon Charitable Trust. They have about another 8 staff working for them, and their vision is also inspiring activity. And it's actually we really have a social purpose of as an organisation. We're a social enterprise in a way. And that purpose, as I say, is to try and inspire activity in all ages, all demographics and all abilities. And it goes past just the London Marathon. It's Ride London, which is the largest, Prudential Ride London, the largest cycling festival in the world, the Vitality Big Half and the Vitality Westminster Mile and London 10,000. Standard Charter Great City Race, Swim Serpentine. We have I think it's 14 different mass participation events during the year, 2 professional cycling races, and we're involved in the Daily Mile. We help fund things like park runs. So there are so many areas of running, swimming, and cycling that we're involved in. And those events are the most popular in Britain. They're 3 of the most popular events that people take part in regular activity. And the staff have just been agile in their thinking and really have been supporting each other.
Well, we wish them and you, of course, all the best over the coming weeks. The legacy of the marathon, you took over it. Your dad famously set it up, as we've said. How much of a privilege is it that you're now following in his footsteps?
I think it's an enormous privilege to do any job that you love, and to work with a team, to have a goal that fundamentally is about trying to help change society for good. Sport should be for everyone. There are so many issues that society has in terms of health and obesity. We have nearly 40% of 9 to 10-year-olds overweight or obese. We have 80% of 40 to 60-year-olds in danger of getting type 2 diabetes. And the more that we can just get people more active, the better it can be. And we are passionate as a team about trying to inspire that activity through both our events and through what the Trust is doing in helping other organisations build infrastructure that support people doing activity and sport. So it's an enormous privilege. You get up every day, and it really isn't difficult to do in any way. It's that the team are incredible, and the values of the organisation that we have, and how committed we are to this greater social purpose is just so motivating.
So the first event was held in 1981, and more than 6,000 people finished in that year. Now more than 30,000 finish, and it's been going, and this would have been the 40th, so in October it will be the 40th race. So the kind of birthday celebrations are beginning, and you've got a couple of years of those, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually 40, I think it was 43,000 or 42,500 finished last year.
Wow, okay.
So, and we've now raised over £1 billion for good causes. Our runners have raised over £1 billion for good causes since 1981. We had just the most incredible field of elite athletes ever. Eliud Kipchoge, the men's world record holder, the man that beat the 2-hour, broke the 2-hour barrier for the marathon in Vienna in October, running against Kenenisa Bekele, who holds the second fastest time ever, only 2 seconds slower than Eliud, who has actually beaten Eliud on the track more times than Eliud has beaten him. Their head-to-head performance was incredible. Bridget Kosgei, who beat Paula Radcliffe's world record from 2003, that she did in Chicago the day after Eliud. She was coming to run. We had Manuela Shah, the Paralympic wheelchair athlete, who is also the world record holder. Ernst van Dijk, Daniel Romanchek in the men's wheelchair event. I mean, world record holders in every able-bodied and wheelchair event, and that's the first time we believe it's ever happened in the history of the marathon in one event together. So it was going to be an incredible day on the 26th of April, and we really hope that we can build and as the world comes through, we hope what is this pandemic, that the 4th of October can bring a bigger celebration and once again show what the world can do together, because community spirit is what is needed more than ever in our everyday lives, and that's what the marathon has shown throughout the previous 39 races.
You're listening to Great British Bosses from Anything But Footy. This is the podcast where we focus on the key people behind the scenes, those that make the British sporting world tick. We're with the race director of London Marathon Limited, Hugh Brasher.
You were 16 when the first marathon was held. What's your memories of that day? And are they still your favourite memories of the race, kind of 40 on?
Oh, my memories of the day was I was fast asleep, actually. So I had sold I'd sold all the train tickets. So it was the 29th of March. I think it was Easter holidays. I was off school, and I was paid. I think it was the princely sum of £3 a day to sell the train tickets. So that was 6,300 train tickets at 50p each. So I was in the Strand Palace Hotel working, I think it was 12 hours a day for £3. And at the end of those 3 days, at that age, I think I just had no idea what was going on. I slept, and I think that the realisation really of what had happened was only on the Monday morning, and that was when the Daily Mail opened. Well, it didn't open, it was on the front page, and you saw Dick Beardsley and Inga Simonsen hand in hand on the front page of the Mail. And I sort of, well, that's what my father had been going on about, and and that's what I was selling the train tickets for. But really, you didn't really understand it, and I think I'm not sure that John or my father really realised then what they were creating. And sadly, they've both passed away. But the legacy that they have left with this event is something that is genuinely incredible. And
is it true? Is it true you considered remortgaging the house to stage it?
Yes, absolutely. I think my mother stopped him doing that. They had no headline sponsor, and then at the last minute, I think it was Gillette. Stepped in, and the first sponsorship, I believe, was £50,000. So yeah, that's what he was going to do, and I think the two of them were just so determined, John and my father, to get the event to happen. And they'd been to New York in '79 and got inspired, and it's incredible to think that from nothing to the first event was just under 18 months. So it really was quite incredible.
Is it slightly frustrating on a sporting perspective, Hugh, that it was set up to try and help British marathon runners compete and achieve? And I mean, I remember obviously Paula Radcliffe that you mentioned, but Eamon Martin winning as well. But Mo Farah has obviously had attempts in the last few years or so, but there hasn't been that kind of British runners coming through as much as maybe when it started off that was the purpose of it.
I mean, frustration. I think it's a great challenge. I think, but I think also you need to something that I'm not sure is as well publicised is that 4 of the fastest 10 British female marathon runners were going to be competing on the 26th of April. So British women's marathon running has never been as strong as it is now. We have Callum Hawkins, who's come fourth in the World Championships in Doha, incredible performance. And we helped support Mo Farah from winning the mini marathon 3 times, through his university education, through all the time before he was elite athlete. London Marathon Events has helped support him. And there are so many other athletes that we have. The Brownlee brothers did the mini marathon. David Weir did it. I really believe that there is a possible future where once again Britain can become the powerhouse of endurance running. That is a vision that we're talking to British Athletics about. It's something that we would love to help happen, and the marathon, as I say, is about inspiring activity, and the more you build the base of people doing it, the more you get kids excited by the sport, and what Eliud Kipchoge did in Vienna in October has inspired people, and that's really what motivates us.
Wouldn't it be great if he could come and do it in London and set the world? I mean, obviously set the world record officially, if you like, because obviously it was that kind of planned marathon record that he broke. It's not been ratified in terms of like when Paula Radcliffe broke hers famously in the early noughties. Is that something you're talking to Elliot about?
Well, I think if you just go to no, it wasn't ratified as a world record because he wasn't racing other people. Had to be racing two other athletes. Had to be three people in the race, and the pacemakers were rotating. And he was handed his drinks bottle. But if you go back in history, and you go to the 4-minute mile, and my father was the pacemaker to Sir Roger Bannister, and they had numerous attempts of different arts of pacemaking. There was one at Motspur Park where my father, I believe, did the first 2 laps. He then almost jogged on the spot for the 3rd lap. Ran flat out for the 4th to help Roger, and I think it was then a British record. It missed the world record. It missed going under 4 minutes, but then the authorities decided to ban that action. So I think that there have been times where you look to technology, and that's really what Vienna did. London Marathon events were we were the operational team that delivered that event in Vienna with the Vienna City Marathon team, and it was a fascinating project to be part of. And what Elliot achieved and how he achieved it is quite incredible. If you saw people trying to cycle and the speed they were having to go to keep up with him, and if you just try and go to a local athletic track. This is a challenge for your listeners. Go to an athletic track and run round it as fast as you can and time it, and see how many of you can get under 66 seconds. I doubt it will be more than 5 in every 100 of your listeners, and that's doing 1 lap. And Elliot did 108 of those back to back with not a single bit of recovery. So look, he's an amazing athlete. He is a lovely, humble man with some amazing values. And I think his race against Kenenisa, if it happens in October, will be fascinating. And we just really look forward to that possibility.
You mentioned some of the other events earlier. Ride London, the swimming in Serpentine as well. Is it revolution or evolution for your business? The constant need to improve and come up with new events.
I think it's interesting. I think it's evolution, but every now and again you probably have to have a revolution. So I think the first time that we did cycling, that really was a revolution for London Marathon events. First time going outside what the company had been involved in then, which purely was running. But now it's much more about evolution and developing the team, developing what we can do. But you've always got to be open to change because the world is changing so rapidly around us. So a bit of both, but I generally would say you probably need 5 or 6 years of evolution and then possibly a revolution every now and again. So
there might be a new event coming up that we don't know about yet, that you've got your eyes on?
We have our eyes on something that we hope will be incredibly inspiring, and we're looking at trying to do it for 2022. We do look quite a long way ahead, and we're working on a whole digital transformation project and how we can inspire people in a manner that works for them and really engage them in a way that is unique. And that's the great thing about events, is the connection that you get with the participant, the conversations you have over a period of time as they train for the event, and how you can introduce them to other events. We have a database of over 1.5 million people, yet we can only fit about 250,000 people in our events in any one year. So we have a responsibility to the people to try and to our customers to try and inspire them to do other events and open up those avenues. So I think, the industry at the moment as well, the mass participation industry is really looking at sustainability, and we're really trying to work together as an industry and do that especially in these times.
You mentioned the challenge earlier of various parts of the business. One of them is the popularity of London Marathon. the subscription, the continued over-subscription to try and get into the race. My colleague Michael has applied 10 times and never been successful. Is that disappointing in some ways that people don't always get the opportunity when they really want to do it?
It's again an interesting question, and you talk about disappointment. I think it's a very interesting balance that we have to play between all the different facets of the event. So you're dealing with all areas of aspects of society in terms of people that can run quickly and people that have never run a marathon before, and also in terms of inspiring people to raise money for good causes, and also trying to help clubs to run and encouraging people to experience what it is like to be part of a running club. So we have so many different areas of the entry system, international entrance, what we can do to help Britain's economy. Over £130 million is the economic benefit to the event taking place. So yeah, there's a myriad of different sort of areas that we're dealing with, and hopefully we have the balance right. I think you can always, say, well, let's try and do more of these. But I think you have to be careful. You marathon runners, it's not something that you should be doing every day. It's not something you should be doing every week. We would say that 2 a year is probably about right. And having it such a amazing experience where it's the crowd that really make it such an amazing event. 750,000 people lining the course and cheering you on this amazing sea of positivity where by the end of those 26.2 miles, if you've put your name on the front of your t-shirt or your running vest, you probably wish you'd had your name, you wanted a name change because you've heard it so often. So yeah, it's just this. It really is an emotional experience running the marathon, and I would just say run for charity. There are so many causes that need money, and running 26.2 miles is not easy. So that's why I think for some people getting in the ballot, it is great, and they try every year. But on the other hand, if you really want to do it, then please. Do it for charity. They need that money, especially now with what's going on in the world at the moment.
A really good tip. Thank you for that. You brought us very nicely to the end. My final question, you talked about the magicalness of the route and the millions or 750,000 spectators. Will it still have that magic in October, Hugh?
I believe that magic will be there like never before. I really hope that the world is put COVID-19 behind it. I hope that scientists, I hope that governments, I hope that society has really come together, and that on October the 4th is what we want to show. We want to show the human endeavour, and we want to show that community spirit. So I absolutely believe on the 4th of October it will be the 40th race like no other.
Well, Hugh Brasher, thank you so much for talking to great British bosses from Anything But Footy. We really appreciate it, and we have been practising social distancing. We haven't done it in person.
We haven't. Absolutely. I'm looking out in my garden and relaxing, and thank you very much for the conversation.